Welcome to Fusing the Unfusable. Today's episode, we have somebody really special. Jerry Fragiskatos, co-founder at Apex Fusion. Welcome.
Fellow McGill alum. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Welcome to the show finally.
Yes.
And it's great to have you in Dubai with us.
Thank you so much. Always great to be here.
Amazing. So, Jerry, you recently attended one of the most prestigious and important conferences in crypto. Please give us and our listeners a view of the general sentiment around the industry and what should the general non-crypto public look out for, and what do they do to be part of this new digital blockchain revolution?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the conference itself was mainly a Bitcoin conference, just to for clarity. And there were some of the traditional themes you would expect from a conference like that. A lot of scaling, L2s, these types of things. So the first generation of blockchains were very focused on security and decentralization at the sacrifice of scalability and usability. And so since then, there's been a big innovation, competition around scaling solutions. So that was a big topic at the conference. Another one, of course, AI, huge topic. How the intersection between AI and crypto, what are the use cases, where do we see the industry going? I think we're really at the intersection of several revolutions right now, which is crazy if you think about it. One revolution is around the reinvention of money, which is what we're doing in crypto. The other revolution is around a new industrial revolution. That's AI, but instead of replacing muscles, you're replacing neurons and brains. And the last one is the new printing press. Now, social media, Unchained is like the new printing press where everybody can talk to each other. And of course, there's pros and cons to that. But, this is another big revolution that's transforming our world simultaneously. And crypto is kind of at the intersection of those big topics. Then there's, of course, the regulatory landscape, always a big topic in our space. We've been living, Dubai has been very forward thinking. That's why we set up our labs here in Abu Dhabi. We set up our labs in Abu Dhabi. So most projects have gravitated towards jurisdictions that have been friendly from a regulatory standpoint. And by friendly, I mean clarity, right? They're not necessarily the friendliest, but they give you clarity, the rules of the road, as they say. So Abu Dhabi and Dubai is one of those source or centers. Switzerland's the other. We set up our foundation in Switzerland, but now everyone's eyes is in the United States, the biggest capital market in the world. And we're looking to see finally some clarity and some market structure. We're really looking forward to that. First off, the threat has been lifted. So, the crypto business is open again in the United States. But now, more specifically, the market structure and what's going to come out of that, in my view, is going to open up multiple trillion-dollar industries. If you just think about the startup landscape, what tokens can bring to that, how onerous it is to do the equity side, bringing it to the IPO and all this kind of stuff. Could you imagine a startup launching a token? It would take them 2 minutes. Of course, I think the regulation should, enforce similar disclosures. You want to protect people. But with tokens, you can do things faster and cheaper. So that's a $1 trillion industry. Then you can think about tokenized real world assets. And then the original vision for a lot of us coming into this space, it was, hot swapping the infrastructure of the financial system. So we've had all these great DeFi projects, lending protocols and so forth that have been built. But because they're not allowed to play in the big leagues, they haven't really gotten their product market fit. But now that's going to open up. And I think they're going to focus first on Bitcoin as an asset, as a strategic asset. And then very quickly on stablecoins, which is another big, huge topic in our space. So these are kind of the big themes that are kind of emerging in our space. And if you go to any big conference, you'll be, hearing about this.
Scalability is a big topic, right? And the trilemma,
Yes.
Scalability, security, and what's the third one?
Interoperability.
How is Apex Fusion addressing that trilemma?
So as an engineer, we know that there is no perfect solution, that every solution has its trade-offs. So we've taken a very specific approach to those trade-offs. And that's by specialization and layers. So we have a chain that tackles each one of those trilemma issues. The first one, decentralization, security, that's our prime chain, which is coming soon, everybody. And so that's a pure settlement layer, and it's neutral. I think one of the big mistakes that Ethereum did was, of course, in retrospect, right? Like, how could you know these things? Yeah, of course. Right? It's not as if you could have foreseen the future. But now we have the benefit of hindsight. And so one of the mistakes that Ethereum did, in my point of view, is they created a layer 1 with an execution attached to it. And then they used layer 2s to scale, but then they're competing with their layer 2s. So the layer 2s are competing the value or extracting the value from the layer 1. And now there's big talks at the Ethereum Foundation about how to fix that. So we said, okay, let's just create a neutral layer 1 that doesn't have an execution layer, and therefore will never compete with the execution layers. The other side of the other thing that by the game theory and the economic mechanisms is that they lock their staking, which created the need for liquid staking derivatives. And then the liquid staking derivatives creates a vector of centralization. So the choice of our technology is Cardano, and that has native liquid staking.
And non-custodial liquid staking.
Non-custodial liquid staking. So that solves that problem. So we created this robust layer 1. The other thing is the choice of model. So we've chosen purposely the UTXO model, which is what Bitcoin is based on, and that's more deterministic, secure, and so forth. You can the analogy is that it's like digital cash versus the account-based system, which is like digital bank accounts. So that's what our first layer, prime. So that's the decentralization security part of the trial in one chain. We launched that. That's our first chain coming out, and we're aiming for maximum decentralization security. The next chain we're building is another UTXO chain, and that solves the scalability issue. And the trade-off there is decentralization. So it's less decentralized. Not to say it's not decentralized, but it's less decentralized to allow for speed. And it's cheaper because on the layer 1, it's more expensive for security, but when you want scalability, it has to for faster, cheaper, equals more centralized, and at the sacrifice, well, you've outsourced the security to the layer 1, right? So it doesn't.
That is the key. That is the key. The fact that we make it a bit more centralized,
yes,
faster, but the security is outsourced to the layer 1, which is very decentralized.
Exactly. And then that's also UTXO based, because we feel that even though today extended UTXO, which is the execution used for UTXO, doesn't have the depth of programmers, doesn't have the depth of use cases and tools, we do feel that when there's mass adoption, especially for institutions, the security profile of UTXO and the determinism of UTXO is going to become more and more valuable.
It is desirable, and I think we're trying to do that, right? We're trying to. I'll let you go on to the next part.
Yeah, and then another level of scalability is Nexus. So Nexus is our EVM-based chain. It's based on Polygon Edge. We chose Polygon Edge because that's the one that enterprises were using, and it's the latest Ethereum client, and that's where you get the depth of developers, the liquidity, the tools, all that kind of stuff. So those marry the three. And then for interoperability, we've created a router bridge, which is the internal bridge, and these are going to come out in phases over the next year or so. That bridges between the three main chains. The token's called Apex. Coming soon. And then you bridge it across the three chains. So basically each chain solves one piece of the trilemma.
I love the multi-chain architecture. I think because of the way this industry was born, it was very tribalistic. People thought my chain is the best, my token is the best. What we've done with one token at Apex with multiple chains, we're solving all the weaknesses. So EVM didn't have the facility or the speed of UTXO, right? Because it's account based. UTXO didn't have the UTXO side didn't have the adoption that we have in EVM. And then by layering it on top of Prime, which is coming soon, which provides security, it provides decentralization, and it provides non-custodial liquid staking. That's a big one because from that perspective, the validators that we've onboarded, and we've onboarded almost...
I think we're at almost 150 now.
Yeah.
And we were aiming for 70. So it's already double. So I'm very, very happy with that. So we were already... So we spent a lot of time with the Swiss authorities, and we got a ruling from FINMA that we're a utility token, and that's based on the level of decentralization, and we've already met the thresholds of sufficiently decentralized already, which is phenomenal.
It is.
So we're very, very happy about that.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a point to celebrate. Let's jump to the next question. You've in the past you've led commercial operations for one of the most advanced and reliable blockchain companies. We've mentioned it. What are some of the main learnings that you brought to the Apex Fusion project as a co-founder from that?
So yeah, I was just, for those who don't know, so I was chief commercial officer in the Cardano ecosystem. I worked for IOHK, and I'm CEO, co-founder of Apex Fusion, and CEO of the labs. So that was, a lot of learnings, and the learnings primarily came from the community. So this mixing of layers into one kind of chain, like having a chain that is a settlement layer, which I think is the most pristine and best settlement layer in our industry, the Cardano settlement layer based on Ouroboros. But then mixing with an execution layer that's not scalable, a scalable Solidity, and then adding a treasury on top of it. Again, that's a choice. Again, you can't say one thing is good, one thing is bad, but you could say something is different. And so by stripping it away and just saying we'll just do the settlement piece, I think that makes it a more robust setup for the settlement layer. The other thing is that, being the chief commercial officer, it's listening to the community about what's missing from a commercial standpoint. So there's a lot of debate in the Cardano community about stablecoins. And I totally understand the ethos around not necessarily, I don't think they're rejecting, but not embracing centralized stablecoins like USDC and USDT and so forth. I understand that from a principle perspective. A lot of people in Cardano feel that it's an on-ramp to CBDCs and all this kind of stuff. So they've preferred innovating in the decentralized stablecoin space. That being said, there's a lot of dApps that are on Cardano that need that, right? Purely for business purposes, not necessarily for, and if ever there's a decentralized stablecoin that solves the problem for stablecoins that's not attached to a central power, great. But until that time, we need stablecoins in the ecosystem. So we've prioritized getting stablecoins into the ecosystem and so forth. And the last bit was the choice of language, right? Plutus and Haskell. Again, I think excellent choice in the sense that for really high...
And that's the smart contract languages.
Correct. That's the execution layer of the smart contract. I think it was a great choice. Functional programming and so forth. It's used in aerospace and finance for a reason, is because it's deterministic and it's robust and so forth. But not all cases require that. So they sacrificed the depth of developers and tooling for that. And therefore, that's why we made the choice of EVM compatibility with Nexus, because there's just such a robust ecosystem now. Like, you can use AI tools now to do Solidity contracts. It's
much easier to program.
Much easier, speed to market, easier to program and so forth. So we're very non-tribal in our approach. Like, we want to use the best in class technology. But we're also quite business oriented.
And practical.
Like my vision is that if we can create a community of people that could live off of our ecosystem, not requiring to have a corporate job somewhere or another job, if that's what they want to do, that's ideal. But you have to provide these practical things, and that's what we're aiming to do, and that's our approach. Again, not better or worse, different.
So just on Solidity, we know that Solidity isn't always as secure as we would like it to be, and that's why we've layered it on top of Prime, which basically does provide that security.
Correct.
So that's really exciting, because it's like we've taken the best of both worlds.
That's right.
And we're solving.
Fusing the unfusable.
Fusing the unfusable. So we've said it a few times. I think we're about to go live soon with Apex's main layer 1, which is actually probably going to be live by the time the episode airs. Maybe not. We'll see. What most excites you about the impact that Apex Fusion will have on the blockchain industry? I know it's a bit repeating ourselves, but I think it's worth a mention. What do you think that the effect will have ideally on the industry and these two spaces, UTXO and EVM? What do you see happening?
So I mean, ultimately, the big boys in our industry is Bitcoin and Ethereum. At the end of the day, and why can't we just all get along? you know, the first asset I bought was Bitcoin. I was educated on Bitcoin. Well, I worked at Dell, and my biggest client was Fidelity, and I got educated, orange pilled by a large asset manager.
Surprising.
Yeah, and so that's how I got into the space, and then I got the job opportunity at Cardano, and then I deep dived in, and I really saw there's a big revolution here. But for me, saying one chain is better than the other, and this is the one chain to rule them all, it's fake. And for me, like, I don't feel that way. And pretending to feel that way is kind of strange for me. So I think all the chains are great, and they all have their trade-offs, as I mentioned before. As an engineer, there's no perfect solution. You got trade-offs. So for me, the impact is getting the two biggest communities to work together and other big communities to work together and find new magic and new synergies. So, for example, we were working with a very high-end game theory company. I'm not sure we can mention the name. Need to look at that. And I worked on Ethereum, and they never even bothered to pay attention to the extended UTXO model or UTXO model. And then they were surprised that the things they could do there that you can't do in the EVM world. They just didn't know. Why? Right? Because they're maxis, right? They don't care. In fact, it's evil to work on the other system. But then when you start looking at it, wait a second, there's some interesting characteristics here that don't exist here, and vice versa. Like the bundling of transactions, like on a UTXO, you could bundle a lot of transactions. Like, I think the actual understanding the state is easier on UTXO than it is on EVM. But EVM is better for programmability. And if you stick in your camps and you got your blinders on and you don't look at the other side, you're missing a lot of innovation. So that for me is the impact I'd like to have, is better together, fusing the unfusable, looking at the other side, looking at other tech, and see how you can work it together. Ultimately, I think the dApps will start off in the different chains, but the ideal version for me long term is that all that's abstracted in the background, and the dApp uses all of them in some fashion, uses the one chain where it has that characteristic, because the other chain has that characteristic, and therefore you get a better experience, a better user experience. So that's kind of the idea.
We're actually seeing that with some of our dApps and some of our wallets, right? It's really exciting.
Exactly.
We're going to have wallets that offer both EVM and UTXO compatibility.
Exactly.
Really exciting stuff. So, what do you think the next few years will look like? And what do you see the role of the Apex Fusion Foundation stewardship of the ecosystem? How do you see them fulfilling this role and its mission in the coming years?
So we were very careful when we designed the foundation that, again, hindsight, that they deploy capital, the tokens and so forth, to create value for the network. So it's not something that's decided upon by some management council. It's in the Constitution, the version of the Constitution, the deed at the foundation is to provide value to the ecosystem. So we've created several programs to do that. And again, learning lessons learned. So we have what we call an perpetual ISPO program, or a perpetual SPO program, where the first stage as a dApp is you spin up a stake pool and you get delegated stake. And that's very low-hanging fruit. That allows them to get the rewards and start their project, for example. Then from that cohort, there'll be a subset that have, taken it to the next level. Then there's a grant program, but it's retroactive grants. The grant programs today, the sin is that they dole out money a bit like a welfare program, and then 99.9% of them don't succeed. That's what the stake pool thing, but they're adding value by providing a validator. And for those that get the next level, they get grant programs. The next level after that is a venture fund or a venture studio. We'll design that. I know that you're very passionate about that, and I'm sure you have a lot of opinions about it. And that's the next level. So kind of almost like a Series A, right? Or the next level of funding. So after that, the ones that find product market fit, then they can work with that thing, which will be focused on the Apex Fusion ecosystem. And then we also have a provision for liquidity. So we're kind of gearing the tokenomics of the foundation through a deed. It's centralized. Again, we made a choice of it being centralized. The decentralization comes from the composition of the council. The council is 7 people from various different areas of expertise. So the decentralization comes from the council. It doesn't come from the technology. There's a lot of exciting things happening in decentralized governance, but none of them have really proven themselves yet. And once there are some that have kind of become robust, and maybe in our ecosystem, someone will develop something, then maybe that will do that. But for now, it's very much, listen, we've got the benefit of the past, hindsight. We've designed a foundation that's going to follow very specific rules around deploying to the ecosystem. They have to. And then I think that's a lot of value add. The last thing we're doing, which is the next thing that's going to come out after Prime, it's on testnet right now, is a reputation system. So that's kind of like, we're very general purpose, but that was one thing we did kind of very specific, where we said, okay, the airdrop programs that we've done in the past, they're kind of being farmed and then dumped on the market and didn't, great. It incentivizes something, but again, a bit not very targeted. By building a reputation system that looks at what people are doing and providing rewards for value add to the ecosystem, then you create good behavior. And you reward good behavior. You can't stop bad behavior necessarily because it's a decentralized ecosystem, but at least you don't reward it.
We encourage good behavior.
Exactly. We encourage good behavior, exactly. I think there's a concept in behavioral science called nudging. We nudge good behavior, right? That's what we do.
I love it. I love it. So this is a community podcast, but we're going to include all the links so that people can kind of follow the official Apex Fusion X channel, which is probably the best place, right?
We've got X, we've got Telegram, and we've got Discord.
And we have a great
general channels.
We also have a great Telegram mini app, which also gamified learning and
education,
and you can build some points as well.
That's right.
That will count towards your reputation score as well.
That's right.
So we encourage users to check it out.
Exactly.
The Telegram mini app of Apex Fusion, and we'll put the links in the description so that everyone can find that. Jerry, it's been great. It's so exciting.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here, and look forward to the next one.
Exciting.